Hello, students. So we're going to start our look at the High Italian Renaissance. Now remember, this is still part of the Renaissance. It's just that art historians will further define or refine the Renaissance in Italy at the height of the Renaissance. So that is why it's called the High Italian Renaissance. It's still a Renaissance. It's still the rebirth of ancient culture, art, literature. It's still the same socioeconomic and political elements that we've already established in the Renaissance. But now we're looking at the pinnacle, or what art historians believe to be the moment or the period of time in which the artists during the Renaissance reached their perfection. Okay, so High Italian Renaissance. Another way to think about the High Renaissance is to consider this, that the High Italian Renaissance is roughly between the dates of 495 through 520. And then I've put in parentheses when Raphael dies. So as I've said several times before, that in this class we don't memorize dates, but instead we think about these period styles, these concepts. The High Italian Renaissance is discussed about the end of the 15th century and the beginning of the 16th century, and it has this firm ending date of 1520 because, as I said, that's when Raphael dies. Raphael, we're going to talk about him in this class, but Raphael is seen as, by art historians, many art historians, as, like, I tease him. I call him Mr. Perfect. He did everything right. And whenever Raphael dies, the movement, the height of the Renaissance seems to falter, and we start to see dramatic changes in art and culture in the Italian Renaissance. Also, consider that in 1519, just the year before Raphael died, Leonardo da Vinci died. So two major players of the High Italian Renaissance, Leonardo and Raphael, both die by the year 1520. Michelangelo, he's going to live on. He's going to have a very long and very successful career. But that's the reasoning behind these dates. Now, I've also given you a definition for High Renaissance that I want us to apply to both the Italian Renaissance and the Northern European Renaissance, which we'll talk about later in class. The High Renaissance is defined not by identical appearance between artworks, but rather correlating ideas and themes, and a flourish of art and the rise of artist status. Okay, let's break it down a little bit more than me just repeating what I wrote on screen. So rather than thinking of the High Renaissance as everything looking the same, I want you to think of the High Renaissance in that every one of these very different artworks is going to be correlating in terms of ideas and concepts or rules. Rules which we've already started to define. Rules of proportion, perspective, composition. We're going to further define these rules, and we're going to see that consistently the artworks from the High Renaissance are going to carry many of these rules, which refine and contain or identify them as being a part of this height of the Renaissance. Another key element of the High Renaissance is that we see a rise in the artist status. What do you mean by that, Ms. Cortez? Rise in the artist status? Great question, student. What I mean is it's at this time in Western Europe that artists and art historians and historians have defined or have noticed a particular, what would be the word? A particular awareness of specific artists. Now, it's not that there was no awareness of artists before this. I mean, we've been looking at plenty of artworks, but now what we start to see is there is this care in not only identifying who is the artist of this artwork, but then speaking to the greatness or the genius of this specific artist. This is when we start to see more specific details about the artist's lives, their training, their master to apprentice lineage, their kind of the drama of their lives, their personalities, is starting to be taken into consideration and then recorded for posterity, for future generations to know about this artist, not just their artworks. It's also at this time when artists start to proclaim, I am more than just a maker of things. To be an artist requires not only the skill and the craftsmanship, education of craftsmanship, but also the education of mythology and Latin and Greek and math and science and chemistry, physics, architecture. So artists are going to be arguing that they are more than simply craftsmen, but have this greater status and understanding of politics, religion, culture, philosophy, and therefore deserve a higher status in the rung of society. Does that make sense? Okay, good. So let's now get started with a look at artists from the High Italian Renaissance.